2003 FLW Tour is now in full swing. Lake Okeechobee provided the exciting start to the FLW season we'd expected, but in a very unexpected way. The best anglers in the world braved very un-Florida-like weather in their quest for the title. We'll review the tactics of the winning pros with veteran Larry Nixon and recap the exciting action on the Big O, starting right now on FLW Outdoors. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of FLW Outdoors. We're joining you from beautiful Lake Okeechobee, the site of the first event on the FLW Tour.
Hey, aren't you overdressed for South Florida?
Feels like it, yeah.
But really, it's not been the case. We've needed jackets for this tournament, and weather has been a huge factor in this event.
In fact, when the tournament first began, we didn't need jackets like this. 78 degrees was the high on Wednesday, day one of this tournament. A 50-degree drop, however, by the time we got to day three. Those anglers who made the cut, they certainly had to prove their worth, because not only was it in the upper 20s when we launched, also wind gusts of 30 miles an hour made it uncomfortable for the anglers, but also it really changed the landscape of the sites that they've been fishing.
When you ask anglers the key to winning an event, it's often I adjusted to conditions. They had some big adjustments in this event, and one day stood out as the key day.
Day three really was it, because the anglers put themselves in position to win this tournament or not based on day three, and as you'll see, only 3 anglers did. 7 anglers took themselves out of championship competition very early.
Mike Sermon, Billy Bowen, and Rick Couch were the 3 local guys in this event. You might think that's a big advantage on Okeechobee, but was it this time?
You know, prevailing wisdom says that some of the local guys, it's actually a disadvantage because they fish memories rather than patterns, except for when the weather changes dramatically like it did here at Lake Okeechobee. Only one of those anglers was able to be a go-to guy and know how the fish were going to react. That was Rick Couch. 12 pounds 11 ounces, which was tied for the highest on day three. He was one of the guys that put himself in position to win this tournament.
So how did the winner do it? We're about to find out from one of the best in the business. Larry Nixon talks to 3 anglers who did well on Okeechobee. He really gets inside their heads and gets some great secrets on how to fish this wonderful lake.
And coming up on FLW Outdoors, we will show you all of the exciting action from Lake Okeechobee.
Water temperatures were lower than ideal, but the world's best bass anglers still had their usual high hopes for Lake Okeechobee as the 2003 season kicked off. The early catch was down from last year, with less than half the field weighing a 5-fish limit, but the big bass were back. Mike Sermon was the star of day one, with the 4th largest stringer in FLW history, over 27 pounds, anchored by a monster that went 9-14.
When they're that big, and I've caught them that big before, but when they're that big, you really don't know how big they are. I mean, once they get over about 8 pounds, you know they're big, but you don't know how big.
By the second day, it was clear the flipping bite would be critical, specifically flipping soft plastics to floating mats of vegetation. That's what worked for Andy Morgan. He brought 25 pounds of the day 2 weigh-in. Like Sermon the day before, the sack included a showstopper.
9 pounds, 15 ounces, a new big bass leader by 1 ounce, 9.15 for Andy Morgan.
Leading the way to the finals, 3-time champion Clark Wenlet with a 2-day total of 37-1. Your Okeechobee finalists, Wenlet, Morgan, and Sermon, and then Pat Fisher, Dan Moorhead, Todd Faircloth, Scott Dobson, Rock Monteith, Billy Bowen, and Rick Couch.
It's now day 3, and each of our 10 finalists is feeling good about making the cut, but now the second tournament begins. The battle for the big money will take place over the next 2 days, and Mother Nature has thrown in her degree of difficulty. In this case, literally thrown in. 30-mile-an-hour winds delivered a cold front to South Florida with a vengeance. As the winds picked up, the temperatures dropped to the upper 20s in the overnight hours. The anglers dealt with less than pleasurable comfort conditions, but more importantly, the high winds changed and in some cases destroyed their favorite spots.
Out there where I wanted to start, that water was still clear, I think, but I don't even know if what I was fishing is still there. I couldn't even tell. I couldn't even tell where I was fishing, because all the reeds are blown down. They're all blown sideways, so decided I'd come in here and try this first.
The championship of this tournament came down to the decision for the 10 finalists of where to fish. The strong wind came from the north, and the southern part of the lake would be most affected. For those who had seen great success south, it was tough to leave their honey holes, but absolutely necessary. Those who stayed south on Friday lived to regret it.
With the wind blowing out of the north, it's hitting the south end of the lake pretty hard. So there's, 2-3 foot waves crashing into that vegetation down there, and obviously the vegetation will break up the waves, but that muddy water will still blow into those areas. That might be tough for those guys.
How many flips can you make without getting a bite? I wonder what the Guinness Book of World Record is.
Let's look at the Big O and break it down. On Friday, the 5 boats which went south caught a total of 4 pounds and 1 ounce. That was all on 1 fish from Andy Morgan. The rest, 0. The 5 boats which ran north brought back a total of 37 pounds, 13 ounces. The water was clearer, and some found patterns not too adversely affected by the wind.
Not to brag, but I didn't plan on 30-mile-an-hour winds, but I've been down here 8 years in a row, and I can only remember 1 year we didn't have a cold front and mess everything up. So I wanted to fish on the north side of the lake, anticipating the north wind, and I was more concerned about the water getting muddy than I was the mats getting blown away, and it kind of paid off. I've got clean water, and my mats are still good. They hadn't moved on me, and it's a little difficult. I mean, Florida fish, they really don't like that trolling motor. The less you can stay on the trolling motor, the lot better off you are. So it's been a little difficult having to fish into the wind and I feel like I'm having to pitch further away from me to, get the unspooked fish, which makes it harder to get them out once you get one on. But I like the situations. I feel like I've got a good shot.
Moorhead's confidence was not unfounded. His 12 pounds, 11 ounces on Friday tied Rick Couch for best of the day. And Moorhead owned the tiebreaker over Couch heading into the final day.
Mwah. My wife says, "Oh, that smells horrible." I said, "That's a smell of money right there."
While Moorhead was cruising in the driver's seat, other notable anglers left themselves with a long uphill battle. 5 finalists zeroed on Friday, including 2-time Angler of the Year, Clark Wendlandt.
If I can stumble on the right group of fish, I'll have a chance to win.
You like a good challenge, don't you?
I love a challenge. I don't know if I like one this big, but just not knowing where those fish are is what I'm a little bit worried about. But, I spent most of my time down south, and I'm just going to go fishing.
3 finalists left launch with a realistic shot of winning it all. Moorhead, Pat Fisher, and Rick Couch all went north.
That was a good drop. Be a fish there. Come on now. Don't be this way. It's warm enough. You guys can...
Thank you, Lord. Couch was on a roll and really got into the action, with his feet actually leaving the deck with each hook set. By noon, Couch had a limit and enough weight to almost equal his day 3 catch. He had given himself a chance to win.
All right. Oh, doggy. Come join our party. High five me. All right.
Moorhead caught another limit, but missed the big bites on Saturday, backing up his impression that the second day of a cold front is harder than the first. The Kentucky native likes to fish fast and cover a lot of water, but Saturday's conditions forced him to fish slowly, a tough downshift for Moorhead.
Yeah, yesterday I had the first 2 days of competition, you'd pitch it in there and let it free fall to the bottom, and I'd kind of hop it. Not real hard, but I'd hop it about twice, and if he was anywhere around there, he'd let you know it right away. Yesterday, I had to pitch it in there and let it sit a little bit and pull it up slower, and I'm sure today I'll have to slow down even more.
The ultimate story of tough starts came from Snickers pro Pat Fisher, who left his camera boat behind. While the camera boat is there to get video of the angler's day, its primary purpose in a tournament setting is to document each catch as the official observer. Well, Pat caught a 3-pounder, but since no one was present, Fisher had to put the fish back in the lake. It was 2.5 hours until he landed another keeper. But then Fisher found a championship hot streak, pulling in a limit in just over an hour, including a 5-pounder and a 6-pounder.
Ball game, baby. Yeah.
Back at the weigh-in tent, Fisher and Couch were the last 2 anglers standing. Both of Fisher's big bass came at the end. The first put the heat on Couch. The second was icing on the cake.
Good fish, but I'm not sure it's good enough. This one weighs in at 3 pounds, 2 ounces, not enough.
We have a champion.
He's
Pat
our champion.
Fisher is our champion, still with fished away. There he is, folks, your champion right here on Lake Okeechobee, the first event of the 2003 season.
Each week, an angler receives the Energizer Keeps On Going award for coming back from the farthest point to make the cut. On Wednesday, Andy Morgan was in 32nd place, but a 25-pound sack on day 2 moved him all the way up to 2nd position.
The Shop Vac Clean Sweep Award goes to the angler with the most total weight in the first 3 days. No one caught more than Dan Moorhead, whose 3-day total was 46 pounds, 4 ounces.
Now let's look at Lake Okeechobee through the numbers of the Stanley stats. 50 degrees is the drop from Wednesday afternoon's upper 70s to Thursday morning's upper 20s. Day 3's launch was brisk. 5 zeros turned in on day 3 showed just how tough that cold front was on the finalists. 8 pounds, 3 ounces was Pat Fisher's winning margin, the largest margin in 4 years on the FLW Tour.
All right, talk about a great time to have a great day. Pat Fisher's 21-14 was the best he's ever had in a final day of any tournament, and he does it here on Okeechobee, one of the great lakes in the country. What great timing for Pat Fisher.
What a great beginning to his season and a great beginning to his career as well. He's really one of the rising stars on the FLW Tour. Coming up next on FLW Outdoors, Larry Nixon talks with some of our finalists. FLW Outdoors is brought to you by Walmart. Always low prices, always. By Everstart Batteries. More power for your money.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be back on FLW Outdoors. What a tournament we had. I'm telling you what, the weather was just incredible. These guys caught fish out there when you shouldn't even be out on a body of water. Okeechobee is one of the best fisheries in the United States, and there's no place better to be than at Roland Martin's Marina in January. And with us today, we've got Dan Moorhead, one of the great new fishermen. He finished real high in this tournament and did a fabulous job of catching these fish. Dan, it's rare that we have a tournament like this where just everything is flipping. I think the whole top 10 was actually flipping. And I looked at the footage of you fishing, and I know that in this particular tournament you were flipping, and you led it after the first day, and then yesterday just couldn't get that big bite to put you over the top.
Yeah, you know, it was one of those situations. I had a large area. I never really beat it up, but you know, when you're flipping those mats, you never know when you're going to get your first bite or how big it's going to be. And you know, yesterday was a short day, and I never had the first bite until about 10:30. And you know, the second day of the cold front's always harder.
Always harder.
And you know, they really seemed to start biting right there at the last when we had to go. And I really believe if we'd gotten to fish another hour or so later, like we had through the rest of the tournament, that it would have made a big difference. But you know, that's the way it goes. I can't complain. I lost a few fish, but when you're flipping those really heavy mats, that's just going to happen. That's part of the game. He's still on there. Oh, he come off. Lord have mercy, come on. He wasn't that big, but it was a keeper.
Well, I knew I'd talked to you once during practice, and you told me you had, I think, 8 bites one day, and I think I'd flipped all day that day and got 2, and I knew the area had to have a lot to do with it. Was there anything specific in the cover itself that you was actually really spending more time fishing? I mean, certain mats, or?
There was. It was a, you know, like I said, where I was fishing, it was a big, expansive area. There's a lot of dollar pads and a lot of mats in general. But what seemed to be the key for me was, and I'd never done this before. I had a friend of mine kind of target me in on it, or I wouldn't have done it. But the fish seemed to have migrated more towards the dead stuff. And you know, in the past, when we've come down here, you see dead stuff and you think they've just sprayed it, so you shy away from those areas and you don't fish it, you know. But the dead hyacinths, the stuff that was really rotted and really looked nasty, seemed to be where the better fish were holding. My buddy said that he felt like that it warmed up quicker and the fish suspended underneath it better. I don't know, but it held true. If I'd be going out through there and I'd see a beautiful mat, and even if it was a pretty good sized green mat and there was one corner that had some dead stuff in it, that's where he'd be every time.
You were flipping way over in that stuff too. You wasn't actually keying on the edge either.
No, I wasn't, and a lot of that I think is mental on my part. When you're crashing through there with the trolling motor, you know, you can't help it. That stuff's so thick, you're gonna make some noise. And I was trying to pitch as far away as I could to unspook fish is what I was, you know, trying to do with that. You know,
a lot of people don't understand that trolling motor a lot of times is your worst enemy.
Oh, in Florida, it's by far the worst. I learned that years ago. Even fishing open water, grass flats, eelgrass, and stuff like that, you touch the trolling motor and you pretty well shot yourself.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. That was actually a pretty small one right there, but let me tell you what, in this tournament here, a guy was proud of every bite, wasn't
That was
you?
a brick of gold right there. First 2 days tournament, I'd be culling fish like that and just throwing back, wouldn't even measure them. Today, mwah.
Give him a little kiss.
I kiss every one of them. I love every one of them.
That's one of them new weights, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the new penetrator tungsten weights. It worked real well. It's compact, small, fell through the mat a little better, and I liked it because when you set the hook, you didn't have to open that fish's mouth quite as much.
So far, yeah.
And the other thing I was doing that nobody else that I talked to was doing is I never pegged my weight. And there's a couple reasons for that. Again, it's like when I fish a tube bait, when I'm flipping structure, if you watch that tube bait in a swimming pool or anything, when you pop that bait and it's not pegged, the bait will shoot away from the weight and it's more erratic. And I think a lot of times what happens is the fish grabs the bait and not the weight. And that's always a plus when you're flipping that big a weight.
You're gonna land him when he does that.
Yep. And but I mean, it was irritating. If you watch the footage, you know, I spent a lot of time making a pitch and it wouldn't go through, and just have to keep pitching it and finally punch it through.
Well, great job, and congratulations again on a great finish, Dan. Third place.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. Andy, what a fabulous tournament you had, bud. I know you won that Ever Start 2 weeks ago, and you was really looking forward to this one, and I thought you was going to win. I really did. I had you picked when you come in Thursday with, what was it, 25-1. 25-1. Man, that was a great catch, and you also had a real bass.
Yeah, I had a 9:15 Thursday, and I kind of rode that pretty hard, of course. Shoot. Shouldn't have bit that second time, because Daddy got you. The mats of grass that I was fishing, we had a strong north wind back Friday morning, Thursday night, and man, it just left. It blew it away, gone.
Now, the bait you were using down there, of course, was just, I mean, like the other guys that were flipping, except here you're using a June bug crawl, 1 ounce. Is that an ounce or an ounce and a quarter?
That's an ounce.
An ounce sinker, and just flipping the heavy covers alongside open water.
Exactly, flipping the heavy cover, the mats, anything that would mat up. I mean, it didn't really matter if it was hyacinths, if it was broken cattails or hydrilla. If it was in the right area, that's what you needed to be daubing around in. Oh, it come off.
One of the main things, and don't you feel like that when you have cold water temperatures and you do have good sun and you've got that matted stuff on top, it warms up that surface just a little bit, and them bass actually just kind of lift up and get underneath that stuff, and they'll just sit on there. Even though it's shaded, you know, you'd think it's cold out there, it's shaded, but the water temperature itself is what makes them go under there.
Yes, it warms quicker than the water because it's a solid structure, and they lay and just suspend right up under the mats.
Now, were you spending a lot of time on certain areas, or were you making a lot of pitches and covering ground? There's basically 2 ways you can fish.
I was fishing real slow. You know, put your trolling motor as low as you could go and still make some kind of progress, and just creep along, make a lot of pitches, a lot of flips, hit everything down through there you could possibly hit, and just take your time. That was the key, was just being slow and stealthy and quiet.
I'm thinking slow, slow, slow. Slow down. Soggy bites. There's a big one. Number Trey. That's the first bite I've had on the bottom right there. That one was right on the bottom, and it didn't get it when it first went through. Just kind of picked it up after I'd moved it a little bit.
You're the flipping king. I've been around you. You set the hook like a wild man. When you jerk, everybody around jumps. Whack, you whop them.
You've got to whack them pretty good, man. You got to get them started up out of that stuff right there. If you don't, they'll muscle you and get in there and tangle up, and they're gone.
I was down there fishing around you somewhere, and you scared me to death when you jerked. I jumped, and I said, what was that? And they said, that was Andy setting the hook. You tried to stay out or stay in openings and work on little areas?
Just to keep my trolling motor in the openings, to keep it from beating against the cattails and stuff, which I don't think that was any good. If you got in there and had stuff around your prop wash, yeah, you didn't seem to get any bites.
I know that. That noise is very, very, you know, me and Dan talked about the same thing. That when you got that prop beating on underwater cover, it scares everything for a long ways. Flipping patterns to me is you flip it in there, and when it sinks to the bottom, if he doesn't get it, and you hop it once and it goes back to the bottom, he doesn't get it, he's not there.
Yes.
I mean, that's normally our feelings, but I'm gonna tell you what, Pat whooped us right there.
Yeah, you really did. I noticed that on film yesterday. You mentioned it too, and I was like, man, I didn't really leave my bait in there long enough. I didn't work my bait long enough down through the mat.
One for the memory?
I put it in the hard drive, I did.
I understand.
Yeah, I got a good lesson right there.
Like I say, I fished around you before, and I know how good you are, and you set the hook like a wild man. Don't ever quit, and I know you're gonna win some more tournaments in the future. So don't worry about 4th place here. You did great, and winning the EverStart, and you've had a good 3 weeks.
Yes, I have. I've been blessed.
I'm extremely proud of you.
Thank
Great
you,
job, Andy.
Yes, sir.
When we come back, one of the rising new stars on the FLW Tour, Pat Fisher. Pat, what a great tournament, man. I'm really proud of you. This weather was so bad, and them fish, I guess they just buried up under them mats, and you figured out how to catch them. Is there anything specific that you really keyed on while you was fishing this tournament?
Yeah, Larry, I keyed on the center of the mats and the color of the mats. I had more, the color. I had more bites out of the dead mats.
The dead hyacinth.
Dead hyacinth mats, yeah, because of the sunlight absorbing all the heat. Cold front, the Florida bass, they just shut down. And they get the warmth, they sit up under the mats. The wind changed the mats every day.
Right.
They would move them 5, 10 yards, or some even in the south end, they blew them out of the whole bay.
One of the main things about bass fishing, when bass cold fronts come through and changes that pressure on them, they do have a tendency to go under canopy cover. That's what I've always called it, it's canopy cover. And they bury up under this stuff, and if you don't use the right lure, you can't penetrate it and get to them. And would you describe this for me just a little bit, or talk about it? This was your main lure, right?
That was my main lure. I fished it every day. It's a Zoom crawl worm with a 1 ounce rattle weight.
What a weight.
And actually, it was kind of small. I mean, some guys were using 2 ounce weights to penetrate the weight, penetrate the thick stuff. And I used a big hook, a 4/0 Gamakatsu hook.
Well, I watched the footage of this, and I know that when you get them fish underneath them heavy mats like that, if you don't have good line, and you do have a different line here, and what is this?
This is a 50-pound braided spider wire.
Spider wire.
That was a maybe, yes.
When you were fishing these mats, I noticed these things are heavy, and some of them got reeds in them.
That is another point there. I keyed on reeds too. For some reason, your weight would drop down beside a reed and go through the hole a lot easier.
Created a little opening there where that,
yeah. Mike Sherman taught me that here 5 years ago.
Is that right? Now see, when he's fishing these mats, I watched this footage, and he's spending a lot of time sitting there yo-yoing that bait up and down in one spot. Was there something specific you was trying to do there?
I was trying to call the bass over. If you had a mat with a 10-foot mat, I knew fish were under them staging, sitting there trying to get warm, and I just sat there and the rattle. I had confidence in the rattle, just pouring it up and down. I would leave it in there for sometimes a minute in one hole.
And you did a fabulous job, and there you're landing another good fish. And watch, these fish just bury up in that junk.
They don't like to come out.
That's why you got to have 50-pound test line and just hang on and try to go to them the best you can. Actually, that's an awful good fish you got right there.
That was my 6-pounder.
Made your day, didn't it?
Yeah. The next one made my day, the 5-pounder. Right after that, I wasn't 3 minutes after that. I called it and I said, that's it. Ball game, baby. Yeah. Woo! Started to go the other way this morning, and I said, no, let me work back this way to see what's down here, and obviously the right stuff down here. You have the deeper water out here. The fish, females are moving in to spawn back in this area back here. And they're just staging, they're just sitting there. There ought to be another one sitting in this clump. If there is one like that, we get to go to Walmart early.
Pat, in some of this footage, it actually looks like just huge fields or big flooded mats, but you were actually really keying in on small areas or maybe a big mat that had kind of had clean water all the way around it.
Yeah, I was getting bites in areas that looked like a spawning area, just a little hole in the grass, actually big, about 10 feet, and then you know, they just move out of the clear water up under the mats.
So actually these fish here, if they was ready to spawn, all they'd have to do is maybe swim over here 10 or 15 yards away from that mat and find them an isolated reed or an isolated cattail, and that's where they're eventually going to go.
That's where they were heading.
You know, any place we've ever been in all the years I've been bass fishing, that if you have canopy type cover like we have right here at Okeechobee, that when you get them really severe high pressure systems and big fronts coming in, they bury under that stuff, and you just got to find an area and dedicate yourself to this area and say, I'm going to go fish 8 hours here.
That's exactly what I did on the last day. I told myself I know the big fish are in there, and I'm going to stay here all day. I didn't run around.
I think a lot of people made a lot of mistakes in this tournament by trying to fish 2 or 3 different areas on the lake, because, you know, it may be 3 hours before they start biting. So you have to kind of say, I'm going to be here and I'm going to fish it if I have to go through it 2 or 3 times.
I knew the fish were there. I was confident, and I went for it all yesterday. And
well, you did a great job. I'm really proud of you. And it's just, you know, when you catch fish of that quality in any bass tournament, you're excited. And I know yesterday at the weigh-in, your heart was beating.
I was very excited. That's actually my largest stringer I've ever caught. 5 fish.
Is that right?
Wow. Wow.
What was the total weight of the final 5?
21-14.
21-14. That's a good string, especially 2 days after a nightmare like we had.
Yes, it was. It was God sent yesterday. It was awesome.
When you know it's in the bag, I mean, it's rare that happens in professional fishing, that you just know you've got it won. But when that happens, it's a great feeling.
It was, yeah, I can't just, it was awesome.
Good job, man.
Thank you, sir.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
FLW Outdoors is brought to you by Field & Stream, the soul of the American. Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. We just heard from Larry Nixon, who interviewed Andy Morgan, Dan Moorhead, and Okeechobee champion Pat Fisher. And at the end of each tournament, you can expect to see Larry interviewing the champion and the finalists and really getting into the nuts and bolts of what worked on that tournament and that body of water.
You know, Carlton, fishing, like lots of highly competitive sports, one of the keys is handling adversity. And in this event, boy, that was certainly crucial, because day 3 was very tough. But the guys who did well on day 3 had a shot on day 4, and that was, as you said, the turning point.
I'll tell you what, and one of the anglers who was able to handle a lot of adversity last year was Angler of the Year, Jay Ellis. What an incredible story of his rise in 2002.
And you know, it all started for Jay here on Okeechobee. He finished 3rd in the first event last year and went on to his great run as Angler of the Year. Here's a look back on Jay Ellis' Angler of the Year run, 2002.
It's the final day of competition on Lake Okeechobee, and time is running out on Jay Ellis.
Man, I gotta go. I just gotta go, and there's this big bass right here.
It's decision time for Ellis. With 40 minutes until check-in, he's got a 30-minute ride back to the launch, if there's no wind on the lake. With wind, it might be a 40-minute ride. Now, Jay's been catching fish, and he's got 5 solid keepers in his live well. Enough for a good showing, though probably not enough to win. But the fish he was agonizing over might be the difference. Well, Jay didn't catch that fish, but he made it back in plenty of time and ended up a strong 3rd at Okeechobee. It was a good start to what would become the best season of Ellis' 12-year pro career. Jump ahead a month to Alabama's Lake Wheeler and the FLW season's 2nd event. Ellis caught 2 limits in qualifying, but ended up 28.
16-14 the cut, 9 pounds, 5 ounces, 16-11, not quite enough, but that should get him a good solid check.
And it kept him in 3rd place in the season standings heading into Lake Washita.
Here's Yamaha Pro Jay Ellis from Tyler, Texas, 6'7" yesterday, but only 2 today.
Yeah, a little disappointing today, but you know, try your best, that's all you can do.
Ellis ended up 34th, but consistency was paying off. Halfway through the season, Ellis was still in 3rd place for Angler of the Year, trailing only defending champion Kevin Van Dam and Sam Newby. What was working was his ability to finesse fish, a skill he'd mastered growing up in California. Now a Texas transplant, Ellis' Clearwater light line skills were helping him climb in the standings.
Thank you, Lord.
Venues like Beaver Lake played right to his strength. At the Walmart Open in April, Jay helped himself again. making the semifinals and moving from 3rd to 2nd in the points race. Yellis was fishing well. He cashed a check in every event and was in position to make a run at Angler of the Year. But at Old Hickory Lake, that run came to a standstill. While Yellis stood on stage, his co-angler Danny Strand posed with fish Yellis had missed. Co-anglers rarely catch more than their pros, but somehow Strand managed to double Jay's catch.
One of the most disappointing days of my career, having a shot at Angler of the Year this year. Those fish would have done me a lot of good today, but one of those days that makes you think about going home and putting everything on eBay and just calling it quits.
Jay's fears about losing his shot at Angler of the Year were well-founded. Reigning champ Kevin Van Dam had a comfortable lead, and the final event was on New York's Lake Champlain, a smallmouth bass paradise that played right to Van Dam's strength. If he finished 28th or better, the title was his, no matter what Yellis did. At the end of day 1, Van Dam was in 30th place.
I'll tell you, I was more worried today than I have ever been. You know, going into the last day, looking at Angler of the Year, I didn't have that good a practice, and it was a pretty tough day for me today.
Yellis still had a shot, but he was not optimistic.
Well, I had just a fair day. I don't know, I've got maybe 15 or 16 pounds, but that's not a real good day on Lake Champlain.
But on day 2, it was more of the same for Van Dam. He dropped from 30th to 44th place, leaving the door wide open for Yellis if he could make the cut.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I haven't had any pressure on me all week because Kevin had to stumble for me to have a chance to win that Angler of the Year title.
Of course, I want to win, but it's going to be, you know, it's his to win now.
Jay Yellis has got 5 in the bag, 17 pounds, 8 ounces, 33.15. He is in.
Secure in the semifinals, all Yellis had to do was finish 15th or better, and the title and a remarkable comeback was his. Strong winds on Lake Champlain kept Jay close to the takeoff early and made finesse fishing much harder. He'd catch a limit, but only 12 pounds 5 ounces worth, a weight that would have barely cracked the top 100 the day before. But the fishing was off for all 20 semifinalists. And Yellis had enough for 10th place and his improbable Angler of the Year title.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, your 2002 Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year, Jay Yellis. After what you went through to get here, and you stayed with it, you persevered, and now you're the Angler of the Year.
I consider myself a real long shot coming into this, chasing the best angler in the world, you know, and he happened to stumble, which he's never done before, so that opened the door for me, and so it was a real change of events.
You know, Taylor, I don't think anybody in the history of bass fishing has ever had a season quite like Jay Yellis had last year. Not only did he fish consistently enough at each event on the FLW Tour to capture that Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year award, but he also won the Bassmasters Classic.
And how he did it might be surprising. Jay's a great light line fisherman, and that was his key last year. He fished light line a lot of the time. We're going to show you a great exchange between Jay Yellis and David Dudley on Lake Champlain, talking about how Jay specialized in light line all last year.
I'm putting out the split shot, Dudley. On Lake Champlain, something's wrong with me.
I can't say nothing when you're Angler of the Year, though. Some of that sissy stuff may have worked.
Hey, you know what's ugly? In 5 of the 6 tournaments this year, I caught all my fish on a spinning rod. Old Hickory is the only place I caught fish on a spinnerbait all year. The rest of it is either sight fishing or finesse fishing.
Now those two anglers, Dudley and Yellis, are quite a contrast in background. Jay grew up in California and David Dudley's from the Outer Banks of North Carolina, but they both know the importance of finesse fishing in winning big money as a pro angler.
Well, we've talked about how our Angler of the Year captured his crown. We'll talk about the FLW Tour Championship when we come back on FLW Outdoors.
Welcome back to FLW Outdoors, everyone, and beautiful, a little bit chilly Lake Okeechobee in Florida. You know, this event is the first stop on the road to Richmond, which is the season championship in September. And again, Carlton, it features head-to-head angler matchups.
I'll tell you what, that Jacobs Cup is going to be fun to follow for the fans. $1.5 million on the line, including a first-place prize of $500,000. Wow, what an incredible payout for the champion there. But to help us get ready for that road to Richmond, let's take a look back at last year's FLW Tour Championship, the first ever to feature head-to-head matchups. The most unique format in tournament fishing took center stage in the 2002 FLW Tour Championship. Head-to-head matchups pitted the world's best anglers against each other in a bracket-style competition that saw teammate against teammate and legend against legend. In the first round, no one caught more fish than Louisiana native Greg Hackney. But when his spots dried up in the second round, Hackney bowed out to Brent Chapman, who turned in the third best total weight heading into the finals. Total weight was the key, as the best weights were paired together for the finals. The bracket format was fun for the fans, and it set up a showdown for the top two and a lucrative $260,000 payday for the winner. Oklahoma's John Sappington earned a shot at the title by beating David Fritz and Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year, Jay Yellis. And Alabama's Gerald Swindle moved past M1 champ David Dudley and Chris Baumgartner and caught enough fish to go for the big money on the final day. The showdown was on for day 4.
Good luck, John.
The bright spot for the 12 finalists was that 6 would walk away winners. Alvin Shaw beat Wes Thomas for 11th place. Takahiro Omori beat Kevin Vida for 9th. Bernie Schultz knocked off Rick Clunn for 7th place, while Dion Hibden bested Aaron Martins for 5th. And in the battle for 3rd place, Brent Chapman beat Pat Fisher. Meanwhile, $260,000 awaited either John Sappington or Gerald Swindle. Both handled the pressure of the big payday with big fishing.
There's one. All right, buddy, stay on there and be big enough. Oh, yeah. Thank you. There he is. That's a big one, son. Yes! All right, calm down, calm down, calm down. Don't think I ain't fired up. Don't you even think I ain't stoked. I'm past stoked. I'm thinking about jumping in, cooling off.
Whew. For all the joviality on the water, the weigh-in would bring tension as the showdown would come down to mere ounces. One angler would win $260,000, the other a second-place prize of $55,000.
We have an exact tie after 2 fish. Exact tie. John Sappington for his 3rd fish. And now we're going to change. We'll switch things around. I'm glad you weren't looking at that one, Gerald. This fish weighs in 3 pounds, 5 ounces, 3.5, putting John in the lead.
John Sappington now with 5 pounds, 9 ounces. He holds a 2-pound to 3-ounce lead. Each angler has weighed in 3 fish. There's number 4.
Here's fish number 4. Back to the interesting part again. This fish weighs 3 pounds, 2 ounces, 3.2.
Gerald Swindle back out in the lead by 15 ounces. John Sappington coming up next with his 4th fish. He trails by 15 ounces.
Here comes fish number 4. Wow. Stay close and watch the weight here. This fish weighs in at 4 pounds, 3 ounces, 4.3. Gives a total of 9.12.
And so the difference now,
3 pounds, 4 ounces. Gerald needs one at least 3.4. To be his limit fish, he needs at least 3.4.
This is going to be
shaking his head just a little bit. This one weighs 2 pounds, 15 ounces, 215. We have a champion.
FLW Outdoors is brought to you by U.S. Bank, home of the 5-star service guarantee. By Evinrude, leaner, meaner, cleaner. And by Walmart. Always low prices, always. Welcome back to FLW Outdoors as we wrap up our stay here at beautiful Lake Okeechobee.
We'd like to let our viewers ask the pros questions. Today, a question about fishing in bright sunshine for South Carolina pro Davey Height.
The question comes from Larry Mondello in Fairview, California. I have a hard time catching fish on sunny days. What can I do to have better luck?
Well, the key is understand that fishing is tougher on bright, sunny, calm days. And if you're a tournament fisherman, you have to understand that you don't have to catch a big fish every cast. You've just got to be competitive, and you've got to catch as many or more fish than other people are catching. On tough days, it's going to be tough for everyone, and we're all out on the same playing field. To help you have a little more success on those days, concentrate on cover, whether it be vegetation, a boat dock, a blow-down tree, something that provides cover or shade for the fish, and you'll have a little more success. But just keep in mind it's going to be a little tougher for everyone when it's a calm, slick day like we have here today.
All right, Taylor, let's take a look at that Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year race. And of course, after just one event, it really just mirrors the standings from Lake Okeechobee. But Pat Fisher out on top. He gets 200 points for his win. And then it goes in descending order after that. Second place worth 199, 198 for third place, and so on. So you can see guys like Rick Couch and Dan Moorhead, Andy Morgan, Todd Faircloth, Clark Wendlandt, all the way down to Scott Dobson and Rock Monteith, all got off to great starts so far on this season.
And Okeechobee, of course, the first of 6 regular season events, and next we go way down in Louisiana to the Atchafalaya Basin and some tidal water.
That's going to be real interesting because almost all of the anglers that we have spoken with have never fished that body of water. Could be a wide open race and an opportunity for a lot of these anglers to make up some points.
And in March, the tour goes to Lake Murray.
And that's where Mike Worm reigned supreme back in 1999.
From South Carolina to Beaver Lake in Arkansas, and I know Clark Wendlandt loves Beaver Lake. He has won there twice.
And Gerald Swindle, another force to be reckoned with on Beaver Lake.
In May, our event is Kentucky Lake. Dan Moorhead's done well there.
He's done very well there. Not only did he win the last FLW Tour stop there, he also won the last Ever Start Series fished at Kentucky Lake.
In June, the Forest Wood Open, Lake Wheeler in Alabama.
And another opportunity for our partner, Larry Nixon, who last year did so well on day 4, he lapped the field, winning that championship.
And the big one, the season championship in September on the James River out of Richmond, Virginia. $500,000 for the winner and $1.5 million for the field in that event.
And just even last place at the Jacobs Cup gets you $12,200. All of the anglers talking about just wanting to qualify for the championship in Richmond.
One of the great parts of our job is the places we go and the people we meet. You're going to chronicle that as the season goes on.
Well, I've been having a lot of fun with my Fuji digital camera, and at each of the tournament stops, I'll be trying to get behind-the-scenes shots of what it's like at the FLW Tour. Shots like Stanley Pro Scott Martin making some final adjustments with some Stanley tools right before launch on day 1. Or how about this beautiful sunrise on day 2? Just look at the majesty and the colors of the sky. One of our co-anglers had to leave the tournament a day early because of an illness in his family, so tournament director Bill Taylor had to find an alternate. At 6:20 in the morning, he called Laura Aldridge and asked if she'd be ready to go by 7 a.m.'s launch. 10 minutes later, she was on the dock with her gear. She went out with Kellogg's pro Jim Tutt and caught a limit of fish. Now, technically, she was just an observer and unable to cash in on any of the prize money, but FLW Outdoors gave her a check for $100 and possibly sparked a new career because she's trying to get into the next event at Morgan City, Louisiana. Good luck, Laura. Also, how about this story? Pat Fisher, what a great championship, and just moments after our broadcast was over, some young fans came up on stage. He got to sign some autographs. Great day for Pat and great day for that young angler as well.
Now, Carlton, if the anglers wanted challenge and competition, boy, Okeechobee delivered in a big way, a super first event.
We'll join you next week from the second stop on the FLW Tour, Morgan City, Louisiana. Until then, thanks for watching on FLW Outdoors.
There's an E numero uno again.
My wife says, "Oh, that smells horrible." I said, "That's a smell of money right there."
Come join our party. High five me. All right.
Coming up next, okay? A little nervous? Hey, this ain't gonna work. All I did was stretch.